2024, there was just over $700 billion spent on digital marketing. It's the first year that digital marketing exceeded traditional marketing. And based on our very conservative estimate, $140 billion was stolen from marketers. I did have a client who had competitor committing fraud to him to the extent of $15,000 a day.
What?
This is a $140 billion theft. That's huge.
Can you actually get any of this money back?
If we take that audience right now, you get an audience coming in, 25% of that is fraud. We remove that audience that's bad, exclude them, so that your budget goes to the good audience, your ROAS goes up.
If I'm a seller, how do I even identify if I'm getting ad click fraud?
I don't think a lot of people realize the extent of this problem. And if you're running a lot of ads, this is major, major money.
You're watching the Marketing Misfits with Norm Farrar and Kevin King.
Back in the saddle again with my buddy Norm Farrar. How you doing, man?
Good. And it's close to cigar time.
It's close to the closer to cigar time, you get the hands. Are you ready?
It's like when I eat dog ice cream.
It's like, but you have a funny mannerism that I've noticed just hanging out with you and traveling with you and being around. Whenever you're looking forward to something, you know how a dog comes up and it kind of wags its tail? Mm-hmm. The dog just wags its tail. It's happy. It's waiting for the treat. You know, maybe you got it in your hand and you're walking and it's following you. Well, when you walk into whether it's an ice cream store or it's about to be cigars or something, you do that, but you have another thing, is you have under your breath, you're like, it's almost like a release. It's like all right now, okay. It's like one of these, like, you're about to open the door to go into the cigar lounge. All right, okay, I made it. It's like one of those kind of things. I'm like, it's kind of funny. It's a little. I pick up on little tiny mannerisms of people, and that's one of your.
It actually kind of sounds creepy.
I just naturally do it. It doesn't matter, and it's everybody. But speaking of mannerisms and stuff, there's a lot of you and I both have done a lot of advertising online, and do you realize now in the world of AI how much is going on that's not actually real? And even I don't know if you've ever done this, but just came to mind. Sometimes when I'm on Amazon and I'm searching for my Googling or looking for my competition, see what they're doing, type in the keyword, up comes all the results, and I don't scroll down to the organic listings. If I'm on, I click on their freaking ad just to make them pay.
I do. You know what? I do the same
for that too. Just I do it on purpose. I'm gonna click you and charge you $1 just to actually look at your thing.
Or 20 nowadays.
Yeah, or whatever. It's a 20, but it's a supplement. But that can add up to a lot of money. And if a lot of people, and I'm not saying people are doing that, but just there's a lot of things going on out there that there's a lot of money being wasted. And I think the big companies are like, yeah, it's not really our problem. It's kind of set their attitude. Yeah, it happens. We'll look into it. So our guest today, that's basically he's been an entrepreneur forever, but he's actually big into actually helping recover some of this money and to help prevent this. So this is going to be a little bit different kind of talk, but it's going to be, I think, pretty fascinating. We're going to probably all learn some stuff that we didn't realize was happening and some things that we can do.
Yeah, and it's a huge problem, so I can't wait to bring on Rich. So let's bring on Mr. Rich Kahn.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, how's it going?
All good.
So $100 billion in ad click fraud, is that what I heard you or read somewhere that you said?
140 billion.
140 billion. So I had it wrong. 140 billion. That's per year?
This was 2024 because the 2025 numbers haven't come out yet. The 2024, there was just over $700 billion spent on digital marketing. It's the first year that digital marketing exceeded traditional marketing. And based on our very conservative estimate, 140 billion was stolen. It was almost 25. It was like 22%, 23% was stolen from marketers online.
I mean, so I know Amazon's like 68 billion in ad revenue. You look at Facebook is like 200 and something. Google's up like 400 billion or something. I don't have these numbers right. And like Walmart.com is only like at 6 billion right now or something. They're trailing behind. But so you add all those up, and that's what you're saying. It gets to the 700 billion number. Yeah,
when you add up all the channels, you got programmatic, you got affiliate marketing. When you add up all the channels of digital marketing, that will sum north of 700 billion according to the stats that we read.
and 20% of that basically is fraudulent. 20 to 25% is fraudulent.
Yeah.
And by fraudulent, is that people like me that's just clicking on my competitor's ad, or is that bots, or is that them saying that was a click when it wasn't a click, or attribution issues? So what is fraudulent? When you say fraudulent, that immediately thinks someone's trying to steal from me. That's what makes me think.
And they are.
When we talk about fraudulent, we're talking about someone trying to steal from you, and it's usually through bots, malware, or human fraud farms. So it's not an occasional competitor. There's something called competitor fraud. We don't look at that because it's a real person coming along. They click on somebody's ad. Okay, they charge them $1. It's not like the end of the world. And if a couple people did it a day, it's not the end of the world. However, I did have a client who had competitor committing fraud to him to the extent of $15,000 a day. What he did, I actually did some research and I found the actual software this guy was using. Is a piece of software you can buy for a couple $100 called the Ad Clicker Bot. And you can tie it into a proxy network so you can bounce off of different IPs. And the way this software worked is you typed in a couple of search terms, and then you typed in a domain name that you wanted to target. So if I'm advertising on car insurance, I just always use that as a generic one. And let's say my competitor is isellcarinsurance.com, and I am on there and I have some other domain name. I don't want the software to attack my domain, so I want it to attack my competitor. So he typed in the search terms, and then he typed in the domain name, and he said, click on it until it's gone. And it would basically, since the guy was spending $15,000 a day, as soon as his ad started showing, as soon as the time targeting kicked in, he started showing his ad, this bot would kick into gear, start clicking on all those ads, and basically deplete his budget. So now the competitor can show above him and take his position. Meanwhile, he's got, and I very, very rarely ever see Google over like 15 or 20% fraud. If you're just doing Google search, if you add in the display network, okay, now you're closer to 50% fraud. But this was over almost 100% fraud. And I'm like, I said his only way of defending it at the time before he came to us was he would have another site, a duplicate site built on a new domain name that was ready to go. He'd have the campaign built. So as soon as he started seeing fraud, which for him, he wouldn't know about it for days. So then he would go in, swap out the domain name, swap out the campaign, and all of a sudden be fine. So what we did was we did a couple things. One, we were able to identify the devices that were being used so we can put blocks on those devices. But we also had a real-time filter. As soon as we started seeing fraud, we would send him a text message to say, you're being attacked right now. So he wouldn't have to wait a week or whatever it took him normally to find it. He would know about it in real time and be able to swap out the campaigns in real time and be back online, would not skip a beat.
Norm, you and I know a guy that if someone crosses his path, he's done things like to mess up your Facebook pixel. So it's not clicking on it so much as he'll go and he'll run some ads in like Brazil, really cheap ads or something for like some sexual toy or something, using a spoof of your pixel to ruin your pixel and all your pixel data, and it ruins your entire account. Yeah, that's not click fraud, but that's another way of just taking someone down. So how do you know when something is? You said you notify this guy, Rich. You don't have to wait the days to find out. How do you know? Is it just patterns or AI analyzing this, or how do you know that something's going on?
Yeah. So what we're doing is we're analyzing the visitor that clicked on the ad. Right when the visitor comes into the site, lands on the site, we analyze over 800 data points on that user's environment. How do they connect to the website? Right. So real people have a certain way of connecting. You're on a device, you're on a browser, you have your basic tools. Fraudsters have a very different way because they're trying to hide themselves, right? They'll bounce off of residential proxies. They'll bounce off of different proxy servers. They'll spoof their device. They'll do all kinds of stuff to try to hide themselves. So that, because let's face it, going back to this example I just said, the story I just told you, if this competitor hit that ad with the same IP address, same user agent, right? Same device and all that stuff, well, it's going to be obvious, and Google will probably catch it and shut it down. Not a big deal. So they have to bounce off of different IP addresses. They have to spoof their device so it looks like different devices, so it looks more organic. And when they do that, that's what our software is really good at picking up on. And once we identify it, then we can do something with it.
So before your app came out, there was nothing. So
no. Actually, well, go back in history a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I had an ad network, which just for the audience's sake, if they're not sure what that is, think of Google, but really small, right? We had a small company in 20 years did about 100 million in sales. So not really small, but compared to Google, everything else is small, right?
When you say ad network, just explain that. That's where you're on other people's websites. It could be banners, or it could be something you're just on a network of websites that has a code that actually shows the ads that you sell to people, right?
Right. And we had access to over 100,000 different websites at the time that we did this. And they were all like good blog sites, like just people just talking about stuff in more detail. So like you go to Google, you do a search for, let's go back to car insurance, right? You go to Google for car insurance, those first 2 or 3 ads, are paid ads, and then the organic stuff hits. So if they're doing research, they would go down to the organic ones. There would be blog sites, and those were our clients. Those were our sources of traffic. You'd click on it, go to their site, and we'd have some type of ad up there, whether it was graphical or text-based, and that was the ad network. And in the very beginning, we launched it in 2003. About 2004, late 2004, we started having some issues with traffic quality. People were saying, hey, the traffic quality isn't what it was. Something's going on. So I did some research and realized right away that it was fraud. And I remember telling my partner, look, I don't want to be the guy solving fraud. I literally just want to buy a solution, bolt it on, and be done. Well, in 2004, 2005 era, there weren't any fraud solutions like us out in the marketplace. In fact, the first commercially available one didn't come out until like 2008, 2009. So I'm a developer, so I figured the only way to save the company is to write software that's going to solve this problem. And I did. Took me a couple days. I wrote some software, worked great, and then it didn't. And then I had to keep evolving the software to keep up with the trends. And that was 21 years ago we started that project. So we didn't really launch it as a standalone product until 2017. We had 2014, 15, we had clients asking, hey, could I license that software for other networks? Like I'm buying from Google, I'm buying from Facebook, whatever. So one guy came to me and he's like, I'm getting organic traffic and it's got fraud. And I'm like, I've never seen this. I got to see this for myself. So we figured out a way to shoehorn our software onto a site and just do a proof of concept. And sure enough, he had 30% fraud coming from organic traffic. We were able to identify and eliminate it, and it solved the problems that he was having. So we said, this has some legs to it. Let's run some tests. Let's compare it against other market players and see if we bring something special to the table, which we did. So we built an interface, separated the company, and then launched a new company. And actually, tomorrow's our 9-year anniversary. April 1st of 2017 was our launch date. And so to this day, there's probably about 100 companies out in the marketplace that do something like what we do. But if you're all familiar with the IAB, it's the Internet Advertising Bureau. They kind of set the standards for pretty much anything digitally related in the market. So they, about 12 years ago, they came out with industry standards for a fraud detection company. If you're going to be a fraud detection company, here's a list of standards, that bare minimum standards that you need to follow. And then there's a couple companies out there that will certify you're actually following those standards. Right now, there's only 6 of us that are actually following those standards.
Hey, Norm, do you know any sellers out there that are just burned out doing this e-com game?
I know a lot of people that have talked to us, when we go to events. And it's not only that, they don't know where to start.
Who would you recommend they talk to?
The first one that comes to mind is Quiet Light Brokerage. And here's why. They're going to build you up. They're going to understand your company. And at the end of the day, you're going to know how to maximize your valuation. So the very first thing you need to do is go and get your free confidential valuation at quietlight.com. They're going to ask a couple of questions. You're going to meet up. It's one-on-one with somebody over there, and then, let the games begin.
Awesome. What was that website again?
It's quietlight.com.
Awesome. I'm going to head over there.
So if I'm a seller, how do I even identify if I'm getting click fraud?
Well, there'll be some. Okay, so here's how it kind of works. If you have less than 5%, you're not going to know, right? But 5% could be a significant amount of money. It's hard to identify if it's 5%. Once it breaches 10%. There's something going on. You can start to feel it. The data tells you if you're following the money, looking at chargebacks, or if you're doing lead generation, you can see the leads aren't, you're calling the leads, they're not answering, or the curious where you got their information. Once you break 15 or 20%, the sky's falling. You know there's a problem. Like, and that's usually when people call us, is like, something's going on. I'm losing clients. You got to help me. What's going on? So the easiest way for you to know is we offer a free traffic quality audit. So we'll audit your traffic for free and identify how much fraud you have. And then based on that, we'll know where you're getting your traffic, and we'll come up with a game plan of how to use Anura to solve that problem. And at that point, you can run the math and make sure the financial system makes sense. And at that point, you're set. But you can come run a traffic quality audit and have no fraud, and you'd be the first. But if you have no fraud, then you wouldn't need us, right? I'm a developer. I'm here to solve a problem. I'm not going to sell a product to someone I can't solve a problem for. But everybody we test has fraud.
How long does it take to see or notice a difference?
Well, it depends on where you're buying traffic and how you're doing it. So, like, in other words, when we first do our traffic quality audit, the first thing we want to do is identify how much fraud you have and where it's coming from. And we do it over a 2-week window, so we have a significant amount of data. 2 weeks of data is half your month. That's, statistically significant enough for us to get an idea. We'll know it from click one. Like, as soon as the first couple of clicks come in, we'll know exactly what your fraud level is. But of course, you want enough data to really get a good pattern on it. So that usually takes, basically a week to 2 weeks to get all that data in and have an analysis on that. Once someone says, hey, I've got 25% fraud like the average client you work with, what can we do? So it depends where they're buying their traffic. So a lot of people are spending money on search and social, right? So we have a product called Search and Social Protect, where its goal is to cut the fraud in half in the first 90 days. So give you an idea of how that works. It doesn't matter if they've got 50% fraud, if they got 10% fraud. The general goal for that software is cut the fraud in half in about 90 days. And sometimes you do it a little faster, sometimes it takes a little bit longer, but that's generally the gist of it. Now, if you were buying affiliate-based traffic, a lot of people do a lot of affiliate marketing. Well, we can stop all that in real time and just literally shut the fraud off instantly, because we no longer have to pay out for fraudulent visitors. Well, you can't dictate that to Google. They're too, like you said, was a 400 billion, some crazy number. They're too big of an entity to allow third parties to dictate how they bill their clients. So what we do is with Google, Facebook, TikTok, X, LinkedIn, YouTube, all those guys, what we do is practice the art of avoidance. We identify where the fraud is coming from, and then we basically hide your ads from those people, from those devices.
When's the perfect time to reach you? So what dollar level should you be looking at? When does it make sense? Where is the sweet spot?
It's a good question. We generally, like, if we're doing our targeting and more marketing, generally anyone spending $50,000 or more a month has a high ROI, because you do the math on it, right? $50,000 a month in spend, 25% fraud, that's $12,500 a month in fraud. We charge a fraction of that, and it makes sense. We've taken
what if I want my airline points, though?
Use your credit. So essentially, ultimately, like I said, what you want to do is look at the different levels of fraud that's coming in, identify where it makes sense. I've had clients that come in at the lowest I probably remember is about $10,000 a month, where it was kind of a break-even proposition for them based on the amount of fraud that we found for them. But they were a growing company, like most companies, and they wanted to solve the problem today so that they can grow without having to have the issue of dealing with fraud.
So, question for Kevin. So, Kevin, you do a lot more Facebook ads than I do. Would this be something you should be looking into?
Yeah, I'm on the smaller side. We spent $25,000 last month, I think, on Facebook ads.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's probably something I should take a look at. But I'm curious though, how you actually prevent it. I mean, obviously, like affiliates, you can just shut off their link or something. They could go direct, but you just shut off the link. But or you stop the ads. But if I want to keep running the ads, are you going in and creating custom audiences or filters to say don't show it to these types of devices, or don't show it in these countries or something? That's basically the prevention mechanism to cut it down.
Right, you're right there. So there's two ways that we work with it. So the first way, obviously, is creating an audience that you're going to exclude from all your campaigns. and we're going to dump into that audience.
And lookalikes of that audience, maybe.
Yeah, you can do that too.
Yeah.
But ultimately, what we're doing is we're putting the device in there and saying, this device we know is fraudulent. Stop showing my ads to this device. And
You can actually pinpoint. They can pinpoint down to the device.
Yeah. So
I didn't realize they could do that. Okay, so you can. It's like blocking your ex or something on there.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So it comes in. We identify this as a fraudulent device. We call the Facebook pixel and says, add this to the audience. It adds that device to the audience, and then that device will no longer see your ads.
It's an exclusion audience.
Yeah.
Okay. I
Step
see.
one. Step two is everybody has some type of conversion pixel on their site. Fraudulent activity knows that they have to trigger that conversion pixel every so often to remain part of the relevant buy. So what happens is if we identify the user as fraudulent, first thing we do is put it into the audience, so we know it's excluded moving forward. Second thing we do is prevent them from firing the conversion pixel. Because if the conversion pixel gets fired, then Facebook says, oh, you like that traffic. You want more of that traffic.
Mm-hmm.
So we prevent that pixel from firing. So it stops basically getting that type of traffic. And Facebook says, oh, that traffic wasn't good for you. Let me find the traffic that is triggering the conversion pixel that you like. So it's a two-prong approach. We do those together. And like I said, usually under 90 days, we cut the fraud in half.
So most of this is not accidental. It's intentional.
Oh, yeah. There's 100. So here's a great example. I'm a big Shark Tank fan. I love watching Shark Tank.
I do too.
I'm not caught up on all the seasons, but whenever I'm at a hotel, at traveling, there's always a channel that just shows Shark Tank like 24/7. So I get on there.
CNBC, I think it's CNBC. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
So I get on there and I watch it, and I love listening to entrepreneur stories, how they got there, how they did their thing. But I love when they're trying to sell their product and they go, this is a $3 billion industry, and I'm just trying to capture a little bit more of that, or this is a $5 billion industry, and to make that number sound so big, this is a $140 billion theft. That's huge. What we're trying to do is prevent that for our clients. So we're trying to minimize that. So again, if we take that audience right now, you get an audience coming in, 25% of that is fraud. We remove that audience that's bad, exclude them, so that your budget goes to the good audience, your ROAS goes up, and that's all you care about.
So the Facebook and those guys, they don't care about this. I mean, it's not in their best interest to actually cut this off because they're making money. If you bring it to their attention, okay, they'll do the right, maybe do the right thing, maybe, but they're like, that's not our problem, really. So can you actually get any of this money back? So obviously, I can see you prevent it going forward. But what if do you do an audit and like, okay, it's the last year, looks like, Kevin, you've spent $920,000 in fraudulent clicks. Can you then go back to Facebook and say, hey, MFers, you owe me $920,000 and here's the proof? Or how does that, or is that even possible? Or how does that work?
Yeah. So Facebook and Google both have ways of submitting potential attacks so they can get refunds. I read an article on Google that and I may have these percentages flip-flop, but I believe they believe 10% of the people, the requests that come in that is truly fraud, and they'll give up to about 30% of the fraud claim back to them. And so when you really do the math, the average person is making 3%. So you can run that exercise. And again, if you're a small advertiser, you probably don't have a dedicated account manager there. If you're a bigger advertiser, you can make a lot of noise. So, it's all handled through politics, I think, at that point. For us, I'm like, let's just stop it from happening. You try to deal with them and see if you can get your money back. We'll give you all the reports that you need and the proof and everything that you need, but let's stop it from happening from this point forward so that you stop paying for it.
So on my Gmail, I have pretty strict filters, and sometimes I miss emails. So sometimes the good emails get mixed in with the others, they get filtered out. And I kind of, if they want to get a hold of me, they'll get a hold of me one way or the other. What about this? Mm-hmm. Are they going to miss the people that or the bots that you're stopping? Is it 100% confident that it is click fraud, or are you going to miss some potential clients?
So you brought up a good point. The average fraud solution in the marketplace, based on client feedback over the last 9 years of selling this product, I've gotten detailed reports from companies that the average company in the marketplace is a 15% false positive rate, which means 15% of the time that they mark something as fraud, they're wrong. one of the things that sets us apart is we have an accuracy guarantee. We do the 5 nines accuracy. So it's 99.999% accurate when we mark somebody as bad, which means we could be wrong 1 in 100,000 times.
I can live with that.
And then we put a guarantee behind it because at the end of the day, we want people to feel confident in it, because some of our competitors have told our clients, oh, that's just a gimmick. They don't really, they really don't, they're not that accurate and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, all right, we put our money where our mouth is. We're going to, because essentially if a client comes to me and says, I think you mismarked this person that's real as fraud, and they'll give us why they believe it to be true. If we believe in their data, then we'll take that back to our engineering team. Our engineering team will go back to that transaction, find out what happened, and then if there was a problem with the algorithm at the time, make a tweak so it doesn't happen again, and then we'll give them a service credit and make sure it doesn't happen again. So we really care about the quality. So my team knows that the only way you can mark something as fraud is if you feel 100% this can't be done by anything other than a fraudulent activity, then you can mark it as bad. So it was a good question, like I said, because I have one of my competitors hates me, and I get along with everybody. I'm just, everybody likes me, and I've been around forever. I started my first internet business in '93, so I've been doing this for a long time, and I generally think most people like me. Maybe that's how we all think about ourselves, but I think I'm a good guy. And for whatever reason, I think we keep stealing their clients. And I think that's why they don't like us. So I was told by one of their ex-employees, our name is a curse word in their company. But I've gotten multiple people come to me and said that they had over a 50% false positive with that company. So you're better off just, flipping a coin.
Wow.
Is there certain industries that this is more rampant in? Like supplements or for products or like
no,
there's no
Legal, insurance,
equal opportunity theft. They wherever the money is, they go after the money, and they try to do it across the board so that they're not focusing on one industry. Like competitor fraud, like the example I gave you at the beginning of this podcast was in a very specific industry. It had to do with believe it or not, change of address forms. Which didn't even think that was a business. I thought you just go down to the post office and you fill out a little card, you pay $1 and you're done. Well, people don't want to pay $1. They'd rather have it done online. So they're willing to pay $40 to have it done online. So they don't have to actually people are using DoorDash for their food and groceries and paying, fortunes above what it would normally cost because they just don't want to go in it. We're all lazy at this point. Punch it on your phone, let it come to you. So it's the same situation. And that was a weird industry. I've never thought that would be an industry, but it was. But yeah, so the fraud from what we've seen is across all verticals. It's not, we haven't come across a vertical. Don't get in this vertical because it's latent. We haven't seen that.
So the only person really, so there's two ways that someone that's initiating this is not two ways, but there's two people making perhaps money. It's the network like Facebook or Google that's making money off the fraud, and then they're not making, the person initiating this attack is not making direct money off of these clicks. They're actually making money because they're costing you money or hoping to put you out of business or push you down in rankings or something, right?
No, actually, well, let's split that up. So Google, let's take Google for example, right? So everybody knows Google.com, that's where you're buying traffic from. But what people don't realize is when you're setting your campaign up, there's a little checkbox in your campaign settings that's hidden, that's pre-checked, that says partner networks, include partner networks, right? And that includes 90% of their traffic that they sell comes from outside of Google.com. So you might be on CNN or weather.com and their ads show up, like they got Google AdSense, so they've got the text ads that are showing up. So, but then there are tens of thousands of websites that you've never heard of before, that I've never heard of before, that basically have websites that are called MFA, made for ads. There are sites that have little blog content, and they have some text in there. And they're trying to attract legitimate people to come to the site, click on the ad so they can make money. But then there are people that drive cheap traffic, which is latent with fraud, to these sites that create the issue of fraud, and that's how it gets filtered back up through Google. So they're actually getting paid for this money.
The pay-per-click?
But they're getting paid on the click, yeah.
Okay.
So now Facebook is different, right? Facebook doesn't do that. But how many of us think Facebook have fake profiles? We all do, right? They know it. They talk about it. They're doing things to shut it down. But how is it? Why do they have fake profiles? Well, have you ever gone to Fiverr to buy 10,000 likes for your website for like $100? It exists. And they don't do it with real profiles. They do it with fake profiles. So Facebook is actively trying to shut these down because they want to keep their network clean. Right. And I believe in the big boys are doing what they're supposed to be doing. In fact, I was at a conference. I met the head of fraud of Google. He's got over 1,000 people working for him on fraud detection. Like, they're investing money in it. The difference with Google is that they just see Google traffic, right? A company like mine, we see access to every network. We have access to different traffic trends that they don't see. They don't have access to. So we're able to pick up on stuff that they're not able to pick up on yet. So that's kind of how it works. So with Facebook, it's an indirect. They're not making money directly through Facebook, but to make it indirectly, maybe through a Fiverr or something like that.
So is there anything that's working now that you don't think, because of your efforts, it's going to, you do think it will stop working? Like, if you have been able to go in there like, oh, this is a big problem. People on these secondary sites are doing this as a result of your efforts. That's basically shut them down. That has now not become a thing to do, and they've moved on to whatever the next scam is.
We can actually see fraudsters testing our code, trying to hack our code, get around our code. We have all kinds of stuff in there for monitoring what people are doing with our code. And it's kind of like there's an old ADT commercial that, put the ADT sign in your yard because, a burglar, when they see that, they don't even want to try to get around the system, just go to the next door, right? And that's kind of what we're seeing a lot with ours. When they see our name on their website, our code on their website, they know it's so hard to get around, they just go somewhere else. That's what we're hoping for. And we do see that. We see them trying hacking. They can't get around it. All of a sudden, they stop messing with our client. And that's kind of where we're trying to get to with our code as we grow as a company, to have more and more of that protection for our clients, so that, when clients come to us, 90% of the clients come to us because somebody they know in the industry said, you got to use this company.
Are any of these companies or these fraudsters accountable? Do they ever get arrested? Can you pinpoint them?
Well, yes and no. So no, because we have privacy laws in this country that protect our privacy, right? Cookies are a problem because they're unleashing who you are. Well, you know what? We're going to now put privacy, you have to accept cookies now. So at the end of the day, people are protected through privacy laws and privacy technology, which is the same technology that protects the fraudsters. So it makes it really difficult to identify who these people are. However, one of my competitors, they built their company name on finding and prosecuting these different individuals. But I was laughing because I was at a trade show last year and they were on stage speaking. So went ahead and listened to them. They're a good company, good group of people. And they were talking up like, wow, we went in, we had, Interpol come with us and we took down the server farms, and we shut them down, and it was awesome. We stopped $5 million a year in ad fraud. And I'm like, I'm sorry, did you say 5 million? It's a $140 billion problem. 5 million is a pinprick, it's not doing the job. So it's, again, it's the smaller operations that don't have enough protection in place to protect themselves. But the bigger ones, you're not going to find them.
How has AI affected this? I mean, the rise of AI, you said you've been doing this like 20 years. You went 9 years ago with Live on the tool, but when ChatGPT came on the scene, AI has been around a long time, but when ChatGPT came on the scene in 2022, late 2022, started changing everything and more awareness. Have you seen AI increase the amount of fraud and make it more difficult to actually fight, or has it made it easier to fight because now you have better tools and better systems?
Well, think of it this way. So from both sides have AI, right? So it's just another tool in our bag. They have AI, to try to get around us. We have AI to prevent it. So it's just another tool that we have to use to help us identify fraudulent activity. But I'll give you an example. There was an AI-assisted bot that came out, I think it was beginning of Q3 or sometime in Q3 last year. And it got around everybody, including us. Nobody was safe. It was around. In fact, there is an affiliate world that took place in Bangkok in December of last year, and I had I wasn't able to go, but I had two of my staff out there, and they were walking the floor, and there was two companies out there selling fraudulent traffic that gets around all fraud solutions.
Oh.
They literally were selling it,
Selling
and they were proud of it. And it was funny because that same month we rolled out our update, which put an end to it, and then gave us so much more data and insight that we'll be ahead of it for the next several years for sure. So, and of course, it's gonna iterate over time. This last week rolled out two more updates. I mean, there's constant updates going out, but that was a massive update. It took us 3 months to rebuild my team worked day and night. Normally, we have a work-life balance philosophy here at the company where, I expect everybody here ready to rock and roll at 8:00 in the morning, kick your ass out, come 5:00 at night, go spend time with the family. These guys were working night and day because they wanted to get this done, and they were upset that their code was getting beat. So they did it. Took them a couple months to put it together. We rolled it out, tested it, had a few hiccups, got them fixed, and in January did a big press release about we're the first and only company that we know of that solved this problem so far.
Hey, Norm, you'll love this, man. I talked to a seller the other day doing $50K a month. But when I asked them what their actual profit was, they just kind of stared at me.
Are you serious? That's kind of like driving blindfolded.
Exactly, man. I told them, you got to check out Sellerboard, this cool profit tool that's built just for Amazon sellers. It tracks everything like fees, PPC, refunds, promos, even changing COGS during using FIFO.
Aha. But does it do FBM shipping costs too?
Sure does. That way you can keep your Q4 chaos totally under control and know your numbers, because not only does it do that, but it makes your PPC bids, it forecasts inventory, it sends review requests, and even helps you get reimbursements from Amazon.
Now that's like having a CFO in your back pocket.
You know what? It's just $15 a month, but you got to go to sellerboard.com/misfits, sellerboard.com/misfits. And if you do that, they'll even throw in a free 2-month trial.
So you want me to say, go to sellerboard.com/misfits and get your numbers straight before your accountant loses it?
Exactly.
All right.
Why do you think a lot of marketers maybe accept this? Is it because they don't know about it? They don't know it's this rampant and they're not educated to how much is actually going on? Or do they like, I don't know, it just sounds too complicated to fight. It's like pop a mole. It's like, it's just, I'm going to knock one guy down, another one's going to pop back up.
Well, give you two reasons behind that. I think the older crowd of marketers are just used to it. So think of it this way.
Just build it into their numbers.
Yeah, because back in the day, right, people would spend money on USA Today newspaper. And they would tell you, we have X number of millions of readers. And yet, every time you stepped out of a hotel room, it'd be USA Today at your foot. You'd pick it up.
Readers, yeah. Does that count as a reader? Yeah. I always wondered that too. Yeah.
And you were just used to that, right? It was just accepted. Like when they do radio shows, or then TiVo came out and you would zip through commercials, you were still counted as somebody watching that show. And it was just kind of the cost of doing business. So I think that mentality has affected some of the marketers today with, if there's some fraud in there, it's just acceptable. Like if it's 5 or 10%, I'll just deal with it. It's just part of doing business. But the ones that care about it, once they look under the hood and find out it's not 5 or 10%, it's 20%, or even if it's 10%. I was speaking to a client last week. They spend $1 million a month in digital marketing, a decent sized brand, and 10% of their buys were fraudulent. That's $100,000 a month. So. And because it's the brand, they care. Like I just updated my LinkedIn profile. It says, how much fraud are you willing to deal with? If you ask that to an ad network, as long as the client doesn't complain, nobody cares, right? Because they're paid based on spend. You ask a brand, it's zero. They're not going to deal with, they don't want to deal with any fraud at all. So how do we fix that? So you get into the stage of talking to them about solving that problem. And first off, identifying how much is coming in and then coming up with a game plan to eliminate it.
So if there's a marketer listening right now and freaking out, the first thing they should do is check out the free audit. Yeah. But next thing, what's the very first thing that marketers can do right now, this week?
So what they can do right now, and this is for the smaller players, right? So let's say you're not at a point where you're spending enough where it makes sense to use a company like us. I get it. I was there multiple times. This is my fifth or sixth multi-million-dollar bootstrap company that I built on the internet. So I get it. So again, when your campaign is small on Google, one of the things you can do is when you go into your campaign, dig into the settings and find, partner networks and uncheck that. Stop buying from the partner networks because that's where the fraud emanates, right? You don't get a lot of fraud coming off of google.com. A little bit. In fact, I have a client right now who's doing that. That's how they built their campaign, and their Google fraud rate was like 1%. So it was like, that's something you can deal with, right? Cutting it in half isn't going to make that much of a difference. But, then I was looking at one of their other sources of traffic was 97% fraud. I mean,
Whoa.
And this was from a major seller of traffic. I'm not going to mention names, but it was a major seller of traffic. And I was shocked. I've never seen it that high from that network. So again, knowing, having the information at hand, knowing exactly what it is and where it's coming from, then it's an easy situation. Like our recommendation is like, well, there's no saving that source. Either reset the source so we can get back down to where it normally is and then start working from there. Because whatever management you've done to this campaign is destroyed the campaign. Because again, a lot of fraudsters know what your KPIs are. And maybe it's just time on site. Maybe it's click-through ratio. Maybe it's filling out a form or something. And they'll do that. So then you're like, oh, wow, this source of traffic is converting really well for me. Let's buy more of that. And if you're not looking at the right data, you're making good decisions with bad data.
So, Rich, you were just talking about unchecking that partners network. What about anything else that they can do that they think they might be doing right now?
You really, unfortunately, anywhere else you go, you're going to be stuck with fraud. It's every network out there. So, like I said, when you're first starting out, Google is like a go-to for like new companies and new marketers. Will start there, put your money there, but uncheck that box. But once your campaign gets so big, you're going to really need that box checked to get the volume that you need to fulfill your budget. So it's a great thing for a new starting business who's just getting started, spending a couple $1,000 a month, nothing crazy, a couple $100 to a couple $1,000 a month, doesn't matter. That's an easy fix. I used to have other fixes, but they don't work anymore. Like there's just no easy way. If you're going to be spending any kind of money in this market, you need to have a solution. And Anura is one of the top solutions in the marketplace. You have no choice.
Right.
It's back in the day, it used to be a selling advantage, right? I'm a network, I'm an ad network, and I have a fraud detection solution in place. Well, now it's become the standard. You need to have something. Otherwise, most marketers aren't going to even consider using you.
Are there certain countries where a lot of this comes from?
Yeah.
Is it like Bangladesh and India and Eastern Europe? And are there some, or you don't want to?
It's all over. It's all over. One year we did a study. Germany was the top source of fraud for 1 year,
Really?
which I was shocked at.
Germany?
Yeah, Germany of all places. We have a white paper on our website that a professor from University of Delaware wrote up. In fact, I was just on with a group of students looking at our data. So what they do is we send them a year's worth of data, every request, everything. They start analyzing it and playing with it. And he did this report when Russia attacked Ukraine, and he wrote up this whole white paper on it. And what it was 4 days after Russia attacked Ukraine, the amount of fraud coming from Russia almost disappeared overnight. So draw your own conclusion, but that's what the data showed.
No, that's crazy. And like you said, for me anyways, a lot of the times I'm thinking, it's specific countries, where it could be anywhere. Like Germany, you just blew my mind. I would never have thought Germany being, one of the leaders.
No, and that is just what our data showed. We just showed our data. I mean, I wish I could find the article, but there was just to show you how this works, right?
Yeah.
There was a gentleman, I think he was 35 years old.
Yep.
Out of somewhere in the United States. So US-based company, or US-based individual, 35 years old, committed fraud and stole $40 million. And these numbers might be off, but the story is the same. Stole $40 million through ad fraud. got caught, and he ended up getting like 30 days or 60 days in local jail with a $100,000 fine because there was no law that he broke. Because we don't have a law that says this is ad fraud. You can't do this, and here's what it's punishable by. So, again, if your moral compass doesn't point north, 60 days in a local jail and a $100,000 fine to keep $40 million, there's a lot of people that would take that, that offer.
Yeah, not bad trade-off. But congratulations on that Ernst Young Award. Those are that's they don't hand those out to everybody.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was for this technology.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, very good. Yeah, what year was that?
That was 2010. So the technology was written initially in 2005, and we had taken off, and we had, my team said, hey, we should apply for this. The technology for the fraud detection that you're building is working amazing. We should really tout it up. So we put the whole thing together, and then I won. And the funniest thing is when I went to the event, to the award event, my goal, because I said, we're really a small company at this point. Like we just broke 10 million in sales, and it was a relatively small company. And I'm sitting around like Chobani and like these massive companies. And I'm like, all right, I want to find a company smaller than me at this event. I couldn't find anyone. I spoke to everybody, and I left. I said, I think we're the smallest company here.
Wow. And I'm curious, when you got the award and it was announced, like they're highly perceived awards.
Yep.
Did your business see a jump?
Yeah. We definitely got some influx of, because we did a press release around it. We did, they do their press releases around it, and we got, a spike in interest of, hey, I saw you won the Ernst & Young, tell me about the technology. And then that would lead into, because they knew what we did. It was just they wanted to know more about the technology, because now it was almost like validated by Ernst & Young. So
let's talk about marketing for a second. Do you do any unconventional marketing for your app?
No, we're pretty straight-laced. We do a lot of trade shows. We do a lot of SEO, a lot of content marketing. We do a little Google paid.
The free audits, I guess that would work too.
That's where we're selling.
They click on all the ads of their competitors. That's how they do the marketing.
Yeah, I don't have time for that. That's all I need. A CEO of fraud detection companies caught doing fraud.
You had me earlier when you said TiVo. I'm like, all right, that's a guy that's an older guy that's been around like us, Norm. When he said TiVo, I'm like, all right. Most of the audience probably is like, what the hell are you talking about?
Is that not around anymore?
No.
Oh, I'm in Canada, so I don't know these things.
I think the brand might still exist, but it's like Sling. Remember when the Sling box was another one, where, because I'd travel and I'd want to watch like my football games, my Dallas Cowboys, or this is before NFL Sunday Ticket or something, and the games wouldn't be on in LA. And so I had a Sling box that you connected to your computer, to your cable, and then I had it sitting in a closet, and then it would sling that channel through the internet so I could watch it on my computer in LA. It's like the technology is crazy. But so on what is something that, if you had to tell brands, like big advertisers are listening to, or not any advertiser that's listening to this, what are 3 things that they should do right now to see to cut down on fraud and to see to what extent it's affecting them?
Well, the first thing is run our traffic quality audit. You got to know. Mm-hmm. That's step one, because you don't have a problem to solve unless you know what you're solving. So that's the first thing I recommend everybody. Like I said, we do it for free.
And that's at anura.co.
Anura.io.
.io. So ANURA.io. Okay.
Correct. Or .com. We own both.
We'll have them in the show notes.
Yeah, it's there. So that's step one. If they want to learn more about it, if you go to Anura.io, we've got a couple hundred blogs, white papers. We have the internet's only comprehensive guide on ad fraud. It's like 80 pages, all learn, just teaching material. So if they want to learn more about it, we have some tips and tricks in some of those guides as well. I talk about, what to look for, before doing a traffic audit. What else can I do? There's some tips and tricks in there as well. I mean, that's the first and foremost. You've
What are
really
a
got
couple
to
of
know.
those? What are a couple of those tips or tricks? Can you share a couple of those here?
Well, I gave you the one that I recall off the top of my head with Google and unchecking the partners network.
Okay.
You know, if you're doing a small enough campaign, makes sense to do that. If you start growing the campaign, you really need a solution.
And that applies to Amazon too. Amazon has something where on the DSP networks, they actually will show some of your ads out across those. And so that's something that I've actually recommended people turn off in the past. So it's not, look, if you're selling on Amazon, you could have the same problem there.
Yeah. So you mentioned DSP. So DSPs, the average fraud rate of a DSP that we've tested, and we've tested dozens of them. Would you guess what the percentage is?
Oh, it's probably super high.
I don't even want to hear.
It's 50%.
50%.
So I got a question around that then, and maybe how your services could actually affect this. So back, the when you start typing something on Amazon, you get the autofill. So you start typing, say you need an outdoor camping tent. You type outdoor CAM, and then it fills in the rest, and there's a bunch of choices. It used to be able to affect that, but with what's called pop-under networks.
Mm-hmm.
So those are based on people clicking. So you could actually, there was a tool that was done by a Russian guy back in 2016 that was on one of the events that I did, one of the masterminds I did. And he's like, this will get you ranked. So we can get you ranked for your brand name up there. So it's not just saying outdoor camping tent, but it'll actually say outdoor camping tent, your brand name, which makes it even more unique. And so when they click that, you get the extra traffic signals on Amazon, so you rank higher on that. It's this whole flywheel thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's all pop unders. So they were doing pop unders, so people didn't have not pop ups, but pop unders.
Sure.
When you close your browsers, another browser sitting there, or whatever, and that's how. And they were doing the clicks. But now, in today's world, Norm and I have a company called Dragonfish, and one of the things we do is intent-based marketing. So we have, if you're losing your hair and you're like want a shampoo to prevent hair loss, as soon as you type that into Google, we pretty much know about 70% of the time, especially if you click on it. It's all based on DSP networks and anonymous data that's collated together to de-anonymize it. And then we get the email, we get your email address, we get your LinkedIn address, we get all this big data that's put onto it. So we have this list. And then we can take that and we can create Facebook audiences out of it, or we can cold email those people. But what I'm finding, it almost correlates to exactly what you're saying. About half of those are no good. Mm-hmm. And they're giving me some either in some cases the information's outdated. It's someone that filled out a survey or did one of those questions, like pop-up questions to answer about yourself. How smart are you? Checks your IQ against everybody else, and they captured your data. Other ones are like an email address from 15 years ago, but a lot of them are like they go to a black hole. I clean the list, so we run it through and like we take a bunch of stuff out. But I'm wondering if a tool like yours could actually be overlaid onto that. So if I gave you, for example, here I have a list. I got a list from our source of 450,000 people who have been to Amazon Seller Central, which is the back end for Amazon sellers. So if you go into that site, you're probably selling some stuff on Amazon because you're logging in to check your stats and everything. I got out of that, about 100,000 were missing data, so those got eliminated off the top. About 350,000 were left, and when I cleaned it, it got down to about 198,000, just knocking out spam emails and stuff. And then when I started emailing them, some of those emails are great, and they're really dead-on targeting. But some of them are going to, somebody's grandmother that doesn't even know that Amazon exists.
Yeah.
Or something. Is there a way to actually apply your technology to that data to where you're like, we know that this email address, or we know that this IP address, or we know that this, and I can eliminate all the riffraff, or not all, but a lot of the riffraff out of my data?
We could look at, depending on what you have captured, if you have the IP address of the user that filled out the form.
We do.
We can run, it's called a GIVT filter. It's a general.
It's not the address of filled out the form. It's the address of the computer they're using to visit the site.
Yeah, that's the same thing. Same thing.
Yeah. So we're not. They're not filling out a form. We're anonymously capturing them.
Okay, so when they visit that page, if we know the IP address, we can tell you if it's a data center or a known IP address. Like we're not going to get the most sophisticated levels of fraud, but in generality, we can look at.
But we can probably clean our list with another layer of that on top of your service.
We can basically cycle that through the data, come back and say, this is what we found is you don't want to be talking.
I bet a lot of that is exactly what we've been talking about. It's just fraudulent stuff, and it's flagging as somebody that is not in. It goes back to your thing about knowing your sources of traffic and how good is your traffic and how, because that's basically traffic. So knowing how good that is or not, I'll have to reach out to you on that and see if there might be something we can do on that.
And that was a shameless plug. What was the name of that company again?
Is dragon.fish. If you go to dragon.fish, we can do that for you. And who knows, maybe with Rich's stuff, we're actually about to make it even way better than what it is already. So
there we go.
That's cool.
Cool.
Just forming a strategic partnership on this podcast.
That's exactly. And hopefully we're about to sign up about 200 new clients on that, Norm. So we may really need this, and maybe able to give Rich some. Rich is like, yes, I know I need to go on this podcast for a reason. So where do you see this going? Do you see this 140 billion continuing to go to 180 to 250?
We're predicting. I think
companies like you have a handle on it, and it's going to kind of keep it at bay, or what do you think?
The growth of the internet is happening faster than the adoption of ad fraud solutions. So we're expecting that number to be 200 billion by, I think, 2030, I think is our last prediction. It's continuing to grow. Now it's the rate of growth, I believe, is slowing down. Because at some points it was jumping like 50%, 100%. Like it was the growth rate year over year was ridiculous. But now it's slowed down a little bit more in line. Because again, if fraud got too big too fast, let's say it was 100% of the internet. Nobody's going to advertise, right? Advertising model goes away.
That's when the big boys will start paying attention when it affects their bottom line.
There is some number between where we are today and 100% that's going to cause havoc. I don't know what that number is, but there is a number. Maybe it's 40%, maybe it's 50%. There's some number that's going to cause havoc on the whole system, and we'll have another 2000.com bubble burst. But the fraudsters know that. They want their gravy train to stay alive. The digital marketing is growing. I think it's 10 or 15% year over year. So they can grow that rate and still not get shut down. They'll do it.
Hey, Kevin King and Norm Farrar here. If you've been enjoying this episode of Marketing Misfits, thanks for listening this far. Continue listening. We've got some more valuable stuff coming up. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast player, or if you're watching this on YouTube or Spotify, make sure you subscribe to our channel because you don't want to miss a single episode of the Marketing Misfits. Have you subscribed yet, Norm?
Well, this is an old guy alert. Should I subscribe to my own podcast?
Yeah, but what if you forget to show up one time and it's just me on here? You're not going to know what I say.
I'll buy you a beard and you can sit in my chair too. And you can go back and forth with one another. Yikes! But that being said, don't forget to subscribe, share it. Oh, and if you really like this content, somewhere up there's a banner. Click on it and you'll go to another episode of the Marketing Misfits.
Make sure you don't miss a single episode because you don't want to be like Norm.
Oh.
So if you look into the future, what are you worried about?
If I look into the future, what I'm worried about most is some type of AI coming up with a way that can't be beat. It's possible. We haven't seen anything yet, but I mean, AI is really just starting to get going. That's a possibility.
Right.
But again, if that happens, they're going to decimate the digital marketing space, and eventually it's just going to shut down the whole system, and that'll be the end of it.
Yeah, there's AI, like you said earlier, there's AI fighting AI.
Yeah. So again, we have the same tools they do.
Staying a step ahead. It's basically how you do it, because it's where there's a lot of money. It's like the old garbage business in New York from The Sopranos, where there's a lot of money, there's always going to be a lot of fraud and crime.
Gotcha. Yep.
Okay. Well, this has been very interesting. We've never talked about this, Kev, And I think there's a lot of people out there that,
I think it's going to be very valuable to a lot of people and open some eyes to quite a few people.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Okay. So, Rich,
actually, where do they find, before Norma wraps up here, where do they, can you spell the name of the company again, how they reach out to you?
Sure. It's Anura, ANURA.io.
Nora, is that some like ancient Greek word? What does that mean?
Well, again, this is dating myself, right? I come from an industry where the domain names of websites were always nonsensical. Google, Yahoo, Bing. And in today's standard, it's like isolvefraud.com or something like they all have names that kind of, and that's just not me. I'm old school, right? So when we were building this company, we tried to come up with a name for it that would be something unique. And our last company, we had a mascot of a frog. So when we were building this, and the software was built inside that company. So when we were building this company, my partner turned around and said, "Oh, what about Anura?" And I'm like, "Sounds nice. It's short. I like the name, but what does it mean?" Well, in the animal kingdom, it's the classification for frogs. So it was just a nice tie back to our previous company. And it's a short domain name. It took us a couple of years, but we ended up buying the .com. So we own Anura.com. And, funny story, I was actually at a trade show in Vegas. Guy comes up and he's like, "I'll never forget the name of this company." I go, "Why?" He goes, "The same as my wife. It's a female's name in India." And he goes, and when we first started dating, I bought Anura.com. I'm like, "Are you serious?" Because he let it go, and it went to an engineering group who had it for 20 years before I was able to buy it.
Oh, wow.
And he goes, "Well, I'm going to check it out." He goes, I won't forget the name. I said, "Come to Anura.com because we own the domain name also."
That's cool. That's cool.
All right. So since it is the top of the hour, we always ask our misfit if they might know a misfit.
I know a bunch of misfits, but I'll go with probably one of the ones that I'm just thinking of right now. His name is Travis Prouty. He owns a call center. Very successful in business. An amazing guy. One of my favorites, and he owns a company called the Call Gurus.
Very good. Well, we'll have Mary reach out to you to get that information.
Sure.
Rich, thanks for being on the show. Oh, we need your contact information.
Sure. The best way to get me is through LinkedIn. That's the social network of choice for me because it's business and they keep politics off, which I like. So essentially, it's just Rich Khan. And if you put Rich Khan and probably Anura, I'll pop up. I'm all over the place. That's the easiest way to get me there, or rich@anura.io. My email is on my LinkedIn. It's easy to get to, and happy to talk to anybody who's got questions.
Fantastic. All right, sir. Well, thanks a lot for coming on the podcast today. This was awesome.
Yeah, appreciate it.
I had a lot of fun.
It's great to meet you, man. Appreciate it.
Meet you guys too.
All right. I bet you there's going to be a lot of people.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Okay, you talk over me. I talk over you. I'm just going to keep talking. Just like this.
It's just like, what? You say something?
Go ahead. I'll ignore it. We were just going to do a stand-up?
You're down here.
No, like I was going to say, there's going to be a lot of marketers that are out there right now going, "Oh, what do I have to do?" This is a problem I had no clue existed.
I've known about it. I remember seeing something like he referenced, I think it was Facebook, that said like, 10%, we know 10% of all of our clicks are fraudulent. Who cares? And that was just recent. I think it was Facebook. I remember seeing that in the last month or two. But I don't think a lot of people realize the extent of this problem. And if you're running a lot of ads, this is major money. And it's not just the money off your ads, but just like apply this to some other stuff. I mean, what I said there with what we're doing with Dragonfish, if we can apply this to that to clean that out, because I know there's a bunch in there. There's probably tons of opportunities around this. So this was eye-opening and awesome. Other awesome stuff though is if we have something a newsletter or something, don't we, Norm?
Brand spanking new. It's only been out for it's been probably about 6 weeks by the time this airs. All you have to do to sign up, it's absolutely free, is just head over to misfits.news, and it's a completely different format than what I've seen in most newsletters. Very interesting. We've had a ton of people who have subscribed call us and contact us to tell us how much they like the newsletter. So check it out.
Yes, it comes out every Wednesday at misfits.news, and we take the podcast episodes and we summarize some of that and add a little bit of additional flavor to it. But if you want to watch more podcast episodes, how do they do that, Norm?
They can just head over to YouTube and go to Marketing Misfits podcast. That's for the long form. And if you just want the nuggets, those 3-minute and under clips, then you just go to Marketing Misfits clips. We also have a TikTok channel under Marketing Misfits, and you can just reach out. We're on all major podcast platforms as well.
That's right. And we'll be back again next Tuesday with another episode of the Marketing Misfits. See you all then.
See you later.